honor God when I honor you. You honor God when you honor me. If you don't honor God, how could you honor me? Just text, I know it's a toss. Oh, but I hate the fact that we lost touch. Hey, the Uber pulling up on call. Tell me, is you trying to fall through? I'ma leave it up to you. What you wanna do? Look, I'm trying to spend this time with you. Know we overdue. What you doing right now? Baby, won't you swing my way? It's been a day and I've been thinking out loud. I know I want you. Long time, baby, won't you swing my way? It's been a day and I've been thinking out loud. I know I want you. All we have is the moment. Text, I know it's a tough time. I hate the fact that we lost touch. The Uber pull it up and call. Tell me, is you trying to fall through? I'ma leave it up to you. What you wanna do? We was raised a little different. Used to be ashamed of what it was. Now I'm paid by the sentence. Taking my time with it. Baby, give me yours. So I can get to know my time with it. And then you can do the same thing.
Have you ever seen me taking Jalen to the orthodontist?
Taking who?
Jalen. Huh? He said he don't think so. What's that little squealing? Oh. We got 2 minutes left. Are you ready?
Let me get some water.
Test.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think you sound wonderful.
Thank you, babe. What? What's wrong? What?
That was a little tone between what might be and what may not.
You thought I'd be next to you.
No, I just couldn't find my God.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to cater to all the needs. You've been feeling guilty for so long. Maybe they're not friends, they are enemies. Don't you tell them yes, tell them get lost.
What is that?
Cause every time you go and ask for help, they say sorry but I'm busy. So you yourself. Ooh, hold up, baby, don't take it. Any friendship if they just fake it. You don't need to put up with that bullshit. Tell them no, 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 no. Hold up, baby, don't stress it. It ain't worth it, ain't won't miss it. You don't need to put up with that bullshit. Tell them no, 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 no. They don't have respect for your boundaries. Girl, you hit too close to the edge now. Only thing they got is toxicity. You can't eat it.
Want to make sure that I hear you. Got you out here on these mics and the ones and twos. Got you out here. Let me see. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Let's give it to the people. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am wonderful.
Oh, good people. Tell us if you can hear. Let me see if I got some volume. People. Okay, there we go. Tell us if you can hear. Let me see if I got some volume. People. Okay, there we go.
That is so weird.
Let me see if I got some volume.
Okay.
You good?
There we go. I am. That is so weird.
Gotcha. Why is it so weird?
Because you should have tested that out.
I did. But the key is once you kind of get everything in and on, you want to test it again.
Oh, okay. Okay. Whatever.
Nothing wrong with testing again. Let me see what time it is. All right, we'll share this thing. Cool. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Okay, we got that there. Well, you got your book ready, huh?
Well, I thought you were introducing us like we always do every time we turn this camera on.
Yeah, well, good evening. I'm your host, James Lee.
What voice is that?
Good evening. I'm James Lee.
And I'm Tarsha Lee.
And we're Elevate Marriages.
Hello, everybody.
We are marriage champions. We are here to share the message of love and matrimony. We're going to help you on your journey in marriage. And these past few weeks, we've been kind of here being a vessel to push out this message about a book that was written by a couple that we admire, Kevin and Melissa Fredericks. It is A Marriage Be Hard.
It has been a great read.
It has. It has. Been a good read. I truly feel as though it's something that needs to be heard. Needs to be heard by many that may not even realize they need to hear it. A lot of people think they kind of got it all together, and we don't, because it's just marriage be hard.
Yes, exactly. And it didn't come with a manual, right? And I'm not saying that this is the manual either. This
Lord
is
have
really
mercy.
What's wrong?
I got a hole in my lip.
This is really
Jeez.
Sorry, sweetheart. Their experience. I'm so sorry. It is their experience. Just as we talk about ours, just on this Elevate Marriages platform. But a great opportunity to hear how other people are navigating through and to learn from that, right? So those of us who have been married for a long time, we pave the way and help those who haven't been married that long, who also paved the way for those who haven't been married yet, so we can get this thing right. Because that's the big thing. Continuing to push and try and move forward to have stronger, better marriages and families and life, right?
And such.
So that's what this is. But it really has been a good read. If you have not joined us before now, I'm hoping my husband has recorded it so that you can be able to go back and listen to it. We did Expectations Be Hard. We did Jealousy Be Hard last week. And this week, because it was requested last week, we're doing Communication Be Hard. And also because we know that it is, or it can be.
It definitely can be. Definitely can be. And we would say tonight, if you're joining us, you're watching us, please share this. First of all, tell us hello in the chat. Make sure you can hear us. If it gets to a point where you can't hear us and or see us, let us know. But tell us where you're from, maybe how long you've been married, and what you're looking for out of this thing. So we want to make sure that we're connecting with you in the chat. If you got questions as we're reading, put them in there. We can see them.
Questions,
put them in there. Comments.
Yeah.
Last week,
some great dialogue.
Good dialogue last week.
Yes.
And even got a few calls afterwards saying, man, my wife and I, we were talking about such and such and blah, blah, blah. And it was good. Good dialogue. Good. This is what this is supposed to do. To spark some conversation in the marriage. So we're going to do that. We got family on out there. Keisha, I thought she was working. You said she was working.
Sweetie people.
Hey, it's all good. What's up, cuzzo? Good to see you on. Good to see you on.
Okay, so Communication Be Hard is it's a long chapter. It's longer than the other two that we did. So we're not going to keep you long. We don't do that. We usually stay on here, I think, about an hour.
Yes.
Right? Because it's not a straight read. We kind of discuss a little bit. We take comments from you. And so that happens. So it's about an hour.
Don't be dozing off on us. We try to keep it interesting.
Yes, of course. Right? So, and we want this to be a discussion. We need it to be open and, maybe guided a little bit by us and by the read. But we want it to be a discussion as well. So, needless to say, we're going to get started.
You sabotage me.
God, my bad. I didn't do that on purpose.
Oh no. What there was? Al Green got the hot grits thrown in his face.
But why did he? Why?
Marriage be hard. Marriage be hard. Carry on.
That wasn't his wife either. That's why he got the hot grits thrown on him. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Communication be hard. It goes without saying that communication is required in every relationship, whether it's with your coworkers, your friends, your partners, your children, or of course, your spouse. Everyone knows that. But what does that really mean? We say that all the time, don't we? What does that mean? What does that look like, right? When someone says communication is key, what kind of communication are they talking about? How often are we supposed to communicate effectively? And whose responsibility is it to do all this communicating? Even though this chapter is dedicated to communication, the subject is sprinkled throughout the book because communication affects all aspects of a relationship, from sex to fighting to jealousy and so on. We want your communication to be firing on all cylinders. As you'll read, we think communication
carry on
is most effective when you and your partner are able to express yourselves and be heard and understood. Likewise, the reaction you get from your partner after expressing yourself effectively should be free of judgment, ridicule, and aggression. Let me hit that one more time. Okay, I'm reading one more time for the people in the back.
Just in case they didn't hear you.
Right. It says, likewise, the reaction you get from your partner after expressing yourself effectively should be free of judgment, ridicule, and aggression. I'm gonna go ahead and highlight. I have been highlighting a little something. I'm gonna go ahead and highlight that because now, what if the initial communication that I got was judgmental? I can't read it.
Yeah, was
judgmental, full of ridicule and aggression. What if that was the message that I received initially, and I was just giving what I got? Because I know somebody out there already thinking it. What if?
Well, that's the first problem, right? That's the first problem. Because you shouldn't be getting aggressive ridiculous. What is that?
Full of judgment. It should be free of judgment, ridicule, and
there you
aggression.
go. You shouldn't get all that.
Okay.
When you're trying to communicate.
But if I did, it's okay to give it back.
No, it's never okay, right? So you can control yourself. You can only control yourself, and many times, we get this whole "the devil made me do it" syndrome, right? And that's not the case. No one can make you do anything. 90% of life is how you react to the things that are done to you, right?
And I can only control you,
right? So
you heard me say right.
The lot of the things that happen, really, it's just all about how you react to it.
And so I can only control you.
You can't control me.
That's what I just said. You said right. Don't take it back. No take backs.
Well,
you can only control yourself.
Much like our president does. I misspoke. So I was waiting. I had a chance to throw, Anywho, we have to be careful really with how our words are used, so they're not coming across with ridicule, judgment, and the other thing.
Right. Rather, we're given initially, and if we start the conversation off in a respectful manner, then maybe they'll follow suit, when we're talking to them, regardless of what the topic is.
Absolutely.
Because if we come in hot, it's going to be hot from the start.
It is.
So set the tone, all right? The problem is a lot of us do a terrible job of actually communicating. When our partners do something that hurts us, instead of us explaining why we're hurt and what we'd like to have happen differently the next time, our feelings propel us to hurt back. Ooh, that's fact. We respond with something sarcastic or below the belt or a holdover from a previous disagreement, and we end up having an argument about something vastly different from what we were trying to communicate. I feel like I'm going to be reading this over and over again because that is so true, is it not? I'll keep going, but we'll come back to it, right? When we moved to Los Angeles in 2013, we had two cars. A 2009 Toyota Corolla, which Melissa drove. Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie. It didn't say Kevin was reading it, but it's just Kevin.
Okay.
And a 1996 Civic, which Kev drove until the transmission broke. Never mind. Kevin, without communicating with Melissa, thought it was a foregone conclusion that a new car was in order. After all, the Civic's transmission was trash. It had cost $3,000 to fix. He had to get to work, and renting a car would be more expensive. So he went and brought a new Honda Accord for Melissa with a low $279 monthly payment and no money down.
That's how they get you, right?
Right? He felt like a total hero, thinking he went out and did the manly thing. Melissa, the only one in the household with a regular paycheck, did not find that heroic at all. Buying a new car was a big purchase that, in her mind, should be discussed as a couple. It was a big problem, like someone has cheated kind of problem. The communication about buying the car was non-existent, and thus the communication after having bought the car was tense and ineffective.
Now, go ahead, carry on. Go ahead.
We have learned that there is no such thing as a foregone conclusion in a marriage. What you think is obvious may not be obvious to your partner. Even if it is obvious, it warrants a conversation and an agreement. Safe to say, we have learned a lot since then. For this chapter, we're going to define effective communication as the ability to be honest, transparent, and vulnerable in delivering your message to your partner. Again, for this chapter, we're going to define effective communication as the ability to be honest, transparent, and vulnerable in delivering your message to your partner. That definitely gets an Elevate Marriage's stamp of approval.
Absolutely.
And it involves much more than simply talking. Newsflash, for us, it took a lot of trial and error to get it right. And sometimes we still fail. We're here to tell y'all, though, it makes a huge difference in your relationship when you communicate effectively. Is that true?
Yes.
Good deal? Okay. Melissa says, I'm going to start talking about effective communication with the story where I did everything wrong. You hear me? Everything. Okay, here goes. In 2014, around the same time that Kevin was rising in social media popularity, I was working for a small aerospace company. When I started, I didn't get too close to my coworkers, pretty much subscribing to the philosophy, if y'all know me from 9 to 5, oh, y'all know me from 9 to 5, but when I clock out, we no longer know each other until I clock back in again at 9. Side note, I was the only Black woman in the office. Was this the smartest, most congenial approach for building my corporate career? Probably not. But I'm sure I'm not the only one who doesn't mix business with pleasure. Even though I tried to keep my private life private, I did warm up to my colleagues, particularly when my husband's comedy started up in people's Facebook feeds. Often I would walk into the office after one of Kev's videos went viral, and my coworkers would ask, "Are you married to Kev on stage?" I was a little embarrassed because I don't like attention, but a small part of me was also proud. Fun fact, the last part of the sentence is a perfect example of effective communication because I'm being honest, transparent, and vulnerable in admitting that I took pride in the fact that my husband's hard work had paid off and his name, as well as mine, was known. But keep reading. We'll get to that later. After working at the job for several years and growing to genuinely like my colleagues, I started accepting invitations to hang out with them after work. Since Kevin worked in the evenings, he was usually too busy to join us. And when he was legit unavailable, I completely understood his not being there. But there were 3 occasions in particular when Kevin could have attended, and I really wanted him to, but he declined. One time, Kevin said he'd attend a company holiday party with me, so I told my colleagues he'd be there. When he changed his mind and I had to face several versions of, I thought Kevin was coming. Child, I snapped. This was an opportunity to expand on a dynamic that I believe exists between many couples. Often, instead of admitting that our feelings are hurt or that we feel rejected, our first reaction is to get angry. My work holiday party was on the calendar a month in advance, and Kevin agreed to go with me. Then at the last minute, Kevin's company threw their party together and planned it for the same night. I said, "Really? Seriously? After you told me you were coming, and I told my coworkers you were coming. That sucks. What am I supposed to do?" Kevin had no answer for me. So you know what I did? I said, "Fine," and stormed out. It was like a game of Jenga. Every time you pull out a piece of the structure, you create a hole in the foundation, and eventually the whole thing comes tumbling down. So, I mean, she was a little, what they call it, butthurt, I guess, about
salty.
It. Very much so salty. But instead of just saying, "I want you to come with me," or "I'm disappointed that you chose to go to that party," because again, it's not his fault that they waited to the last minute to plan it. Actually, he could have said no because they waited to the last minute.
This is true.
Before I go into how I completely failed on the communication front, I need to provide a little more context. At the time, Kevin was working in digital media for a cool company with cool people. To give you an idea of how his work life compared to mine, think back to high school. Remember how the cool kids always sat together at lunch? The beautiful, talented, athletic ones? That was Kev's workplace environment, the cool kids table, while mine was the table of dorks and misfits. I don't mean that disrespectfully because I genuinely grew to love my coworkers, but we definitely were not sitting with the prom queen and high school quarterback. Kevin had his dream job where he got to create and play, meet celebrities, and post on social media. And as if that wasn't enough, he and his coworkers would have foot races in the parking lot and film them. Have I made myself clear about the cool factor? I think so. My friend group at work included a random collection of people: 23-year-old college students, 60-year-old grandfathers, middle aged men and women. We easily could have been on a poster for diversity and inclusion. Still, the imbalance got under my skin. When it came down to it, I always went with Kevin to his work events, attended plenty of parties where I stood in the corner while Kev mixed and mingled. Very often, all I wanted to do was scream and go home. Socially, I was the epitome of the Alessia, Alicia. Don't ask me, I don't know.
Don't worry about it.
Kara song, "Here." Truly, I want to Go, no business here. Oh yeah, I do know that song. I can't tell you the beat right now, but I do know that song. Truly, I ain't got no business here. I would rather be home all by myself. And that was fine. I had been by Kev's side for countless outings, gatherings, dinners, luncheons, you name it, recognizing that his events meant more for his career. I got it. But to me, this was less about career importance and more about how we supported each other and each spent time on things that were important to the other. Let me tell you, it was plainly obvious to me that my feelings didn't matter to Kev at all. When Kev was invited to my company events, whether they were small get-togethers or large corporate parties, I very often RSVP'd no for him without even discussing it. But that hadn't been the case for this holiday party. It was the one thing I absolutely wanted to attend with my husband. At the last minute, Kevin told me he wasn't coming because something else came up. Normally, I'm not a person who keeps score, but when I tell you I'd had enough, I was done. I simmered on that until a few weeks later. Okay, let's just, I love Melissa.
I'm glad you said something because
everybody know I love Melissa. I mean, I think she is absolutely beautiful, just classy. I just love her to death. But she is so right about this whole communication thing. As far as her not being a good communicator, that is.
Yeah, she's terrible.
Because every time we read something, it's like, oh, I was simmering on this. Oh, I did this. And I'm telling you from my own personal experience and from just what I know in life. When you let it simmer, I'm telling you, it will boil over and ruin your stovetop. You're going to be hotter later than you are right in the moment. Right in the moment, even though you seem like, okay, I'm really, really upset. I think that if you talk about it then and get it out, it comes out a little bit better than when you wait 2 days to get it out. I'm not talking about a little 10-minute cool down. I'm not talking about a 30-minute, let's go to our own corners before I say something I'm not supposed to or whatever. I'm talking about when you wait 2 weeks to say something. Now you did put a whole bunch of stuff on top of that, and you've had too long to think about it, honestly.
Absolutely. I was hoping you said something because Melissa got some. She has some.
Okay, don't do it.
Grudge holding issues.
She didn't say grudge.
Something for weeks. Yeah.
On until a few weeks later when Kevin. Oh, I simmered on that until a few weeks later when Kevin and I got ready to attend his coworker's wedding. Kevin's brother and his wife were at our house, and we were all dressed up and excited about dancing and partying at the reception. But when it was time to leave, I said, I'm not going because I'm too tired. She waited till the day of the moment they would all get ready to go.
Petty LaBelle. That's what she is. She petty.
Kevin looked at me with a mix of confusion and shock. I thought I was finally showing him how he made me feel all these years.
He walked out that door.
The problem is that my communication was not effective, not even close. As you can imagine, Kevin and my sister and brother-in-law were very surprised. How in the world did we go from laughing, joking, and having a good time to this? Their genuine surprise is what let me know that I didn't effectively communicate. Communication is a team sport in which all players are required to read from the same handbook. When I changed my attitude without warning, I essentially switched up the play without informing my teammates. And to compound the situation, when they asked what was wrong, I didn't tell them where my feelings originated. So now they were left completely in the dark. Kevin had no idea I was hurt from the times he skipped my work events. I never said anything. So why in the world would he know the reason behind my boycotting his wedding? Did I really think that Kev was going to ponder it and think, I wonder why she's not coming? She says she's tired, but maybe I've done something wrong somewhere. Perhaps Melissa is perturbed that I have not gone without her to her work party. That's a funny voice. What?
That's a funny voice.
I have learned my lesson. Nope. That did not happen. Of course it didn't happen. He didn't think that at all. He thought exactly what she said. I'm tired, and didn't probably think about it again. That did not happen. He took my words at face value, which makes perfect sense. Everyone left the house for the wedding while I stayed home stewing in my own juices. Now, the fact that they all left her, okay, now you really going to be hot because you're in the house by yourself.
Serves you right, though.
To be alone.
No, not the alone, but to get to think you're going to get a different result. I mean, she was stubborn. She was being stubborn. She didn't talk about it. There could have been an opportunity for them to converse about whatever was bothering her, and she could have gotten it out. He could have, hashed it out with her, and she could have been at the wedding. Was it a wedding? Mm-hmm. Eating cake and hot wings, but she wasn't. She was at home.
And the other thing is how it all rolled out. Don't wait until the day of some event because you've been plotting and planning. What is that when you it's first degree murder when you plan it ahead of time?
Premeditated murder.
There you go.
That is first degree. Yeah,
well, but yes. It's premeditated for sure. Because you're waiting on an opportunity to get him back. And he doesn't even really know what's going on. So it doesn't count. Right?
It doesn't. You let me know when I know it's Melissa, but you let me know when you might want me to, because it looks like that she was the one with the problem with communication. You know what I'm saying?
You know what?
That happens sometimes. See. It can be one-sided.
I am going to go through. It says, now I do enjoy my alone time every now and again, but this was just plain dumb. Kevin had no idea that I had chosen to die on that hill. In fact, he didn't even know there was a hill. I had not effectively communicated any of the feelings or thoughts behind my choice. Mm-hmm. Years later, after Kevin and I had started therapy and realized how bad we were at communication, I came up with 3 pillars, a trifecta of sorts. Now, mind you, this is years later, so that means she never told him what happened with the wedding. You put that in your bag. And oh my goodness, wives, ladies, period, we will drag some bags. 1 week, drag some bags. And those little things like that. Oh, he didn't go to my event. Put it in the bag. Oh, he doesn't care about my work life. Put it in the bag. Oh, he didn't even notice that I was upset about this doggone wedding and trying to teach him a lesson. Put it in the bag. And we just drag it on through. Girl, these arms are weak. I'm telling you, I don't drag bags. Okay, well, at least I try not to. I'm not going to say I don't ever, but I try not to.
Set yourself free.
Years later, after Kevin and I had started therapy, okay, she said trifecta of sorts for effective communication. Of the 3, honesty comes first. You're not going to get anywhere meaningful with your spouse unless you're honest. I failed on that front in this scenario. When I refused to go to the wedding, I said it was because I was tired. That wasn't honest, not even close. And that's the thing. While I do believe that most people make every effort to be honest in their relationship, the fact is that we often fail. My lack of honesty with Kevin did not arise because I intended to be devious. She was kind of about the setup, but needless to say, it happened because I hadn't gone through my process of 1, thinking through my feelings, 2, being honest with myself in determining whether I was on the right side of the issue, and 3, bringing that honesty to Kevin. Honest communication is the fastest way to mutual understanding. And the fact of the matter is that I concealed my true feelings about the issue for a long time. If I had been honest about how all those missed events made me feel, Kevin and I would have been reading from the same playbook, allowing us to work together through the issues faster and keep resentment from building up, because that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what's crazy is that the resentment is building up in you.
You carrying it yourself.
He over there eating bonbons or whatever. Eating hot wings and with ranch, the whole 9 yards, and living life, and you over there with this resentment, and he doesn't even know it exists. Now, it's also true that you can use the excuse, I'm just being honest, to say something that stings your partner. For example, I might have told Kev that I wasn't going because I wanted to get back at him. That would have been honest, but it would have also been spiteful, mean, and childish. Honesty should be paired with kindness. Because, well, why not? You can be honest and still be communicating effectively, which brings me to the next component of effective communication, transparency.
Ooh.
Oh, my goodness. Honesty and transparency. Let's see where they are.
That's in the... That's in the cake marriage, isn't
Absolutely. If you follow Elevate Marriages at all, you know we talk a lot about honesty versus transparency.
There is a difference.
There is definitely a difference. Let's see what they say. Transparency means taking honesty to the next level. It requires being accountable to your motivations, your true motivations, and identifying them in the first place. If honesty is the what, transparency is the why. Transparency is identifying the reason behind the feelings, the behavior, or the communication breakdown. Here's a hypothetical example of the need for transparency.
This is what I wanted to see.
Okay. If a husband gets to talking to at work, gets a talking to. Okay. If a husband gets a talking to at work and is at risk of being demoted, receiving a pay cut, or even getting fired, he might feel emasculated and not be honest with his wife about what happened. His insecurity might manifest itself in his behavior, making him moody, cranky, or short-tempered. If he's being transparent with his wife, he will admit that he's afraid she's going to view him as less of a man. He will admit that his work problems threaten his masculinity, his role as a provider. Communicating with transparency builds trust and fortifies honesty. The conversation is no longer just about telling my truth. It's also about understanding why I'm acting and responding the way that I am. But you know what? I would highlight the whole.
Highlight it so you know where you're at.
Go ahead. I'm ready.
Oh yeah, no, you good. Was there you about to make a point? Because I was going to say
no. Please go right ahead.
Well, the whole piece of transparency and honesty. I mean, I like the example that they gave, but it's not always about losing your job or feeling like you're not going to be able to take care of something. But it just may be something about. Yeah. I'm gonna get it.
I'm sorry. That's what I thought. That's what they.
It's about giving more than what's asked, right? Because I can ask you a question, but hey, where have you been today? And you might tell me, oh, I've been to work. And that is a true statement. You're being honest. You've been to work. But what you didn't tell me is that your work today was at the golf course, because this is the annual picnic where you go off work and you go do whatever, and you have barbecue and strippers and drinks and all kinds of stuff. The transparency would be giving all those details. Oh, well, I was at work. We had our annual blase, and, I didn't look at the strippers, but I did eat some hot wings and so on and so forth. That transparency piece of it, telling more than what's asked. It's more than just you answering, but being able to answer without being asked, if that makes sense. Does it make sense? Put a 1 in the chat if you think it makes sense.
Put a what? A 1?
A 1 in the chat if you think it makes sense.
I think it makes sense, of course. I think this is just maybe another level of transparency, or another part of transparency.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I do think sometimes there's something more behind it, the feelings behind it. Why are you so upset? Why are you giving me the cold shoulder? What's with this silent treatment? What is that? What's wrong? I think that's a common question. What's wrong? What's going on with you? Nothing. And depending on how you get that nothing, it is very much so something. And
that could really be a lie. That nothing.
So
it could be the lie. You're not really being honest, right? That's kind of you putting that guard up.
Yes.
Because we should be able to communicate with one another and share what might be bugging us.
I agree. So that's the honesty part.
Something shining right there.
Really?
It's been glistening the whole time I was in. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, that would be the honesty part of it, telling exactly what the nothing comes from. Oh, well, that there really is something. So you want to be honest there, but also transparent about whatever your feelings are behind
Absolutely.
it, because there's a reason why maybe you are now withdrawn, or there's a reason why you maybe are not talking, right? Well, I don't know. You hung up on me earlier. Well, how did that make you feel? And telling the whole story is, I think, what what the transparency is that they're talking about.
So let's, since you opened that part of it, ladies, this is just speaking from a man's standpoint. We're not your girlfriends, so we're not going to always come to you to pour out our feelings, as you put it. So when we do, you want to be careful to make sure that environment, when we walk into it and choose to walk into it, to be vulnerable, that it's a space that we can be free to speak with liberty, without judgment. Because if it's not, you'll never hear it again. We will not walk through that space with the possibility that our wife will either hold something against us, bring it up, to dangle it over our heads in the future. Not going to happen. So you got a chance to build that environment to allow for that transparent moment to take place. So you can cultivate that environment on a regular basis. But if it's somewhere where I feel like, it's not going to happen. On the flip side of that, fellas, we got to be careful in sharing everything with our wives. I say everything about the subject, right? Not leaving out the little details, even if it's stuff that you don't think matters. Because if you leave the gaps for her to fill them, trust me, it's going to be worse than what you wanted it to be. I'm just telling you. That's real. I'm just feeling the moment where I'm being channeled by by somebody,
not by yourself.
Fellas, hear me when I tell you, don't leave it to her to write the movie, because it will be a thriller, suspense-filled, dramatic, man, plot twisting all the way. Don't do it. Just tell her. Don't leave her.
Okay.
Be completely transparent. Be honest. Don't cut it off. Even omission is lies. So don't omit anything.
This is true.
Don't omit anything. Don't be, if it was 4:00, don't say it was 3:00. Tell the whole
truth. Because when the details come back out.
Because here's the thing.
Every wife is in child private eye.
If you leave a little bit of that on the table for her to figure out that he said it was 4:00 and it was 3. What else you lying about? Come on, man. I'm trying to help you right here. I'm trying to help you.
I said it better myself. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Man.
This is very true, babe. Good job.
That was free. I ain't charging none of y'all for none of that.
Okay, so next she says, if she would have been transparent with Kevin basically about going to the wedding, that she would have said, hey, it hurts my feelings. I'm embarrassed when I have to go to these parties by myself. And they're like, where's your husband? Probably thought she was making it up and she really wasn't married to him in the first place. You know what I mean? I don't never see your husband. You always talking about them. Anyway, so she said she just wanted him to feel what she was feeling. And for all she knows, with all these people, they probably wasn't the wiser and wasn't thinking about, where's Melissa? They probably didn't even ask at all. Maybe you've had an outburst or two and said something similar in anger to your partner. And the thing is, you can rest knowing you were honest and transparent. Being vulnerable, but the hard work is what comes next, vulnerability. Ooh, this is so rough.
I spoke a little bit about that. Just, there you go.
Okay. Being vulnerable means exposing yourself to rejection. You admit that you're jealous, that you're afraid of losing your partner, that you're insecure. Ooh, I already highlighted this while y'all was running and talking. Okay, vulnerability invites your partner to the deepest, darkest, even ugliest part of you. If transparency allows you to recognize the issue, vulnerability allows you to share it. I'm going to read it again. Vulnerability invites your partner to the deepest, darkest, even ugliest parts of you. Transparency allows you to recognize the issue. Vulnerability allows you to share it. I like that. I like that a lot. It's a natural human instinct to avoid vulnerability, avoid being exposed, and thus avoid putting yourself in harm's way. That's why people tend to do anything and everything to keep from speaking vulnerability. And when I say people, I mean me, and she also means me. Vulnerability is scary because when you're vulnerable, you risk getting hurt. But you have to be vulnerable with your partner in a way you don't have to be with others. Your spouse needs to understand you, to support you in a way you need, to know you better than anybody else does. If I wanted Kevin to fully understand my position, I should have added vulnerability to my statement. Let's break it down. What I felt rejected. I felt that what mattered to me didn't matter to my husband. I felt embarrassed that I had to explain to my colleagues time and time again why my husband wasn't present. I was hurt that Kevin didn't consider my feelings and didn't place value on the parts of my life that didn't include him. He was not attending any of my work parties, and to get him back, I did the exact same thing. You're not going to my party, I'm not going to yours.
Childish.
Completely. What I actually said, I'm not going to the wedding because I'm tired. No honesty there. What I might have said if I was simply honest, I'm not attending your coworker's wedding because you never attend things that are important to me. While that's honest, it's definitely not effective. What I would have said if I were honest and transparent, I'm not attending your work event because you never attend mine. And I want you to feel the same sadness and shame that I feel when I walk into an event and everyone else has their spouse on their arm and you're never with me. It's your turn. Yes, I realize that would be honest. And ladies, well,
she's selfish.
Any of you,
I don't like Melissa no more.
You can say it, but you can comment. I'm probably not gonna be. Oh, she said that was honest and transparent. I think that was a little vulnerable too. Because talk about seeing the ugly side. Oh, that's what you do. Yes. That's who you are in this life. That's what you were doing. You were trying to get back at me. I'm not gonna put that out there. I don't believe I would do that. But maybe that's what needs to happen, so you can see that honesty and transparency behind these crazy actions. What I would have said if I were honest, transparent, and vulnerable. I'm not attending your work event because I'm angry and hurt. You don't seem to value my work the way I value yours. Also, I have been wanting to show you off to my colleagues, and I feel like a fool when I show up without you. It means a lot to me that you show up in ways that are important to me, even if they aren't important to you. Oh, that would have been so nice to say.
It would have been.
But, and not the day of the wedding, right? Not the 10 minutes before it's time to walk out the door. Shame. What do y'all think? Oh, I would have told Marion, you talking about he can't go to the whole wedding because you not see?
No,
ma'am, we're not doing that either.
She ain't playing.
He is going to the wedding.
Hey, at least she's honest.
That's right. He can go to the wedding, but she has to have some kind of understanding of what she needs to do to make this a better situation for her. Because remember, Kevin didn't have a clue what was going on. I mean, he probably knew she wasn't tired. I don't agree with that because she was just kikiing and pooting a minute ago, and now all of a sudden is she back. And now all of a sudden you're not going? No. Mm-mm.
Yeah. But you have to that vulnerable piece. Once I let you in there, don't betray me. Don't make me regret walking in there. All right, here's Kevin. Here's the crazy thing about Melissa's story. This whole thing was happening for her, in her head, in her heart, and I was in the dark. I had no idea she felt the way about the imbalance and how we supported each other. No idea at all. Quite honestly, it was only while writing this book with her that I became aware that I don't check in often enough about her feelings. We can do that, fellas. We can be
checked out,
right? Mm-hmm. If again you follow us, we give you some things that you should do as a married couple, where that opportunity is given to you daily, mm-hmm. to where you can talk about things that might be bugging you. So, yeah, You're probably thinking, how on earth could Kevin not know that Melissa didn't like attending his work events? Well, it's twofold. First, I told myself she was having a good time. And second, I was not recognizing the inequality between us. The very thing that was silently fueling Melissa's anger, obviously, I knew she wasn't having the time of her life when she came out with me. But I really didn't grasp that she was coming to those events for me, not for her own enjoyment. She adopted the Madagascar penguins approach. Just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
Hey, hello.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? It worked. Whenever we arrived at a party or gathering, Melissa was always smiling, always pleasant. She warmly greeted the people she already knew and was friendly to the new people she met. After the initial hellos, she usually chilled and made the requisite amount of small talk while I gallivanted and frolicked through the event, being the dapper charmer that I'm known to be.
Whatever.
My ego was so big. I assumed, of course, she wants to be at One Oak. If you're not familiar with One Oak, it's a big fancy club where rappers and other rich, fashionable people gather. Forgive the braggy name dropping, but I have to tell you that my company had a party there. Rihanna was in attendance and Justin Bieber performed after we were home and already asleep, but who cares? So he didn't even see him, but he name dropped him in the book, whatever.
Okay, and I don't know if you guys know this, but he worked for, don't ask
Boeing.
me.
He worked for Bank of America, Boeing.
Oh, you think he's talking about Boeing and not All Deaf right there?
Probably All Deaf for sure. I was naming them.
I was like that. I don't think Boeing had Rihanna and Justin Bieber. He worked for All Deaf, which is Russell Simmons.
All Deaf Digital, yeah.
I'm kind of surprised he hadn't said the name either, but that's a whole other situation. Go ahead, Brett.
The truth is, I was so happy going to these clubs and parties, I never took the time to consider whether Melissa loved them as much as I did. But I should have. I know Melissa. She don't care about no nightclub, rappers shout out. If I took even 1 second to see past what I wanted to be true, I would have known she was only being a dutiful wife. One thing that I hate about myself is this. I have often been completely unaware of Melissa's feelings, especially early in our marriage. Actually, it was Melissa who made me aware of this shortcoming. A couple of years ago, years after these work events took place, Melissa pointed out to me that she constantly reads my body language so she can tell if something she says or does makes me feel a certain kind of way. If she sees that her words or actions don't land well, she adjusts accordingly as to not hurt my feelings. It was only after she described this habit that I realized I didn't tune in to her on that level at all. When I said something to Melissa, I didn't look to see if she smiled or winced. I noticed only if she had a big reaction. I had to be hit over the head. If she reacted subtly or passively, I missed it. I said what I had to say and moved on without getting any feedback.
That's unfortunate.
It is.
But it happens.
It happens all the time.
And I think the longer you've been together, it happens probably more than in the beginning of your marriage.
And it goes both ways. And it almost gets to a point to where you can get so used to talking to one another or saying certain things that if at one point it does become annoying or uncomfortable and you say something about it, say, well, I've always done that. Well, it's always been wrong. That doesn't make it right. If they verbalize that it's a problem and they don't want you doing it anymore, you should be considerate enough to say, you know what? I apologize. And don't do it again.
But I don't think I think so many times we want to get out what we're feeling and what we're thinking that we don't realize that part of the communication is the person that you're talking to receiving the information that you're giving. You don't care about that part. I said what I said, and that's that. Did you receive it? Did you like it? Probably not.
Last time, a little name of focus.
And probably not. So you just that part. You just have to make sure that there's effective communication, paying attention. I think that's great about Melissa and the body language. I bought a book on body language. I was so interested in that, just in my work, regular work, that would really help too. But it does help the facial expressions, the eyebrows, the twitch of the lips, the folded arms. That's a big one. Everybody knows that if you fold your arms or you're sitting like this when you're talking, you're closed off to whatever the conversation is. Sometimes I don't have pockets and I don't know what to do with my hands, so I do fold them. But sometimes it is probably because I'm not really listening. So just being open to the communication and not only giving information but receiving it is super important.
That is effective communication. Excuse me. Okay. Still, excuse me. Melissa can be crying real tears. And if I ask her what's wrong, she'll often say, nothing. She won't talk about it. She'll just go off to cry in the shower and refuse to tell me what's wrong. Now, there's a problem with that. And we can come back to it, but that's not effective either.
Wait, the crying in the shower?
Well, yeah, you're crying, and then you can cry in the shower. But if I ask you what's wrong, and you tell me nothing, but you go off and cry by yourself, and then we never bring it back to me, we don't talk about it. How am I supposed to know if you don't share?
Right. That was part of the whole lack of transparency, honesty, and vulnerability, because she was being very vulnerable if she was hurt enough to be crying in the shower. Yeah. But go ahead.
And here's where I'll get vulnerable. When this happens, I end up going down a spiral of insecurity in my own head. My wife is crying and she won't talk about it. I don't know why she's crying. She's going to hide her tears in the shower. She's going to tell a friend that she's unhappy. She'll meet a man who will understand what she's crying about. She'll leave me for this man, and I'll be the one crying in the shower after I murder him and throw his body under the bridge. I added that last part.
I knew it didn't say that. I knew it didn't say that. I knew it didn't say that.
Why you always looking at my words?
Because I can't tell if you're being silly or if he's being silly or both.
Just as I admit where I fall short, let me also point out where I'm strong. When an issue is brought to my attention, something I need to improve, I work very hard to make the necessary adjustments. I want our marriage to be healthy and happy, and I'll do anything in my power to ensure that. If Melissa had been honest, transparent, and vulnerable back then about how my missing her events made her feel, I would have immediately corrected the problem. Even now, as I type this, I see how in our relationship I haven't been as supportive of Melissa in her endeavors as she has been in mine. Of course, I would cheer her on and not obstruct her, but I most definitely didn't show up for her in the ways she did for me. Now, as her influencer career grows, I can correct where I used to fail. Instead of only letting her do her thing, I make it clear that I'm there for her in every possible way, both literally and figuratively. For example, when her photo shoots are planned well in advance, instead of just recognizing that she's busy and not asking her to come on the road with me, I could take it to the next level and make sure I don't have a gig that day so I can show up for her. In this phase of our relationship, it's time to even the scales. I've learned a lot since Melissa blew off that coworker's wedding. After doing the love hour and going to therapy, I'm more aware of her feelings and my habit of misreading her cues. I wish we could go back in time and communicate effectively about what was really going on. But since she didn't speak up and I was unaware of her true feelings, I take zero responsibility for my actions and actively shift the blame to her. I kid. I did learn I did communicate effectively in a more recent example. Just as we were getting back to life after COVID-19, I started traveling again. And one of the first nights I was back, I thought Melissa and I were going to go be at home together, watching television. About an hour after I walked in the door, Melissa told me she was going over to her best friend, Danny's, to hang out. I could have been a big baby and pouted without saying anything, or I could have thrown a temper tantrum. In fact, My natural inclination was to say, girl, you always going over to Danny's house. You don't ever make no time for me. But I stopped myself and said, you know, I've been gone a lot. We made plans to watch TV, and I was really looking forward to that. I've missed you, and I hope we could have had a day together. Because I was honest, transparent, and vulnerable, Melissa heard me, respected my true motivations, and changed her plans to stay home with me.
Oh, that was sweet. Marion, you might have been on to something.
So it starts with Melissa in the next section, of course, but we are well at an hour in this. We're at an hour.
Oh, okay.
Communication, guys, be hard. But is it?
It is. The vulnerable part, I think, is difficult sometimes to really say, and not because I think we want to be quote unquote hard, and that stubbornness comes out. And it's like, yeah, go ahead. You want to be your old stinky friends? Go ahead, forget you. And then I'm there watching TV by myself, having a horrible time. But to be vulnerable enough to say, man, I really missed you, and I really want to hang out with you today. Almost saying, can you choose me? Can you change your plans and be with me? I think you've got to be a little vulnerable and honest and transparent.
You do. But I think more importantly is that you have to foster an environment for communication. You guys have to make a decision that we're going to talk. And fellas, like Kevin said, if she had told me, I would have corrected course. We have to be willing to do whatever it takes, no matter what, to fix whatever's wrong. And naturally, that's what we are. We are fixers. We want to make things right. But the only way to know what to fix is to communicate about it. And I think too many times we just don't take the time to talk and listen. Because communication, part of that is listening, active listening. Don't talk over one another. Let the other one speak to get their thought out. Too many times we're on the edge of our seat waiting for them to take a breath so we can jump in. No, that's not effective communication.
True.
Sit and I watch shows on YouTube, and I do a couple of podcasts just during the week, and we all have our mics. But even right now, if Tarsha and I both started to talk, even though they're on separate channels, you wouldn't be able to understand what we're saying if we're talking at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Not effectively, anyway.
If you're waiting to respond, you're not listening for understanding. So you have to put yourself in a position so you can understand and make it a habit to, you know what I'm hearing you say is boom. And regurgitate whatever it is that you thought you heard. So if there's any miscues or something that you took a certain way that they didn't mean, they can say, no, that's not what I meant. This is what I said. And make it clear. You have to allow each other to talk.
And I like what I want you to talk more about the whole fostering an environment that I feel comfortable talking in, because everybody doesn't feel vulnerable or feel comfortable being vulnerable because maybe the last time I was vulnerable, you used it against me, or it made it even worse. It was a really big blow up. So it's like, no, I'm not going to be vulnerable this time, or I'm not going to tell my whole truth or be transparent because it makes it worse than it is. You know how to say things in a way that it can be heard. Mm-hmm. You know how to say things effectively and communicate in the right way and know that where it doesn't come off rude or disrespectful or what have you. You know how to do it. You can do it with a lot of other people. But sometimes for our spouse, we say the last or the worst part. And that's not how it should be.
It shouldn't. No, you should speak to no one better than you speak to your spouse. If you wouldn't go out and cuss out some man in the street, don't go out and cuss out your husband.
Or if you know how to get your words together and speak appropriately, I'm not saying you got to be all polite and yes, sir, no, sir, this, that, and the third, but you talk to your boss in a certain way, the guy who writes the
Right.
check in a certain
Absolutely.
way. So if you can give him that type of respect, you should be able to give your husband that you share your life with way more than that. So just being able to pick your words and the effective communication, going back to what they were talking about in the book, really being honest, really being transparent, and taking it one step further and being vulnerable enough to really say what your feelings are as well, why you're feeling that way or why you're bringing this up. That's the part we sometimes miss. We shut down and start getting quiet and uh, going off to ourselves, and
Yeah.
it doesn't solve anything because I guarantee you it's going to be right there in that bag when you have the next disagreement.
If you don't talk about it now, you'll find yourself bringing it up at a time where it'll have no validity. It won't make sense because you're talking about an argument that we had 2 months ago when you had an opportunity to discuss it, and now you want to all of a sudden bring it up, and I'm supposed to really know what you're talking about. I'll say right now, most men, we don't like drama. We don't. So many times we'll concede just so we don't got to deal with drama. But it's still not always the best stance if you're not going to communicate a problem with something. So don't shut down. Don't
Tell half the truth.
Have the truth, and don't make each other feel like that. It's not a safe environment to talk, to discuss. We had a few comments in the chat here.
Dakota, he said, Kev knew and ignored her. He still could have pursued, right? Now, we were probably reading, so I'm not completely sure.
Not sure we understand. It wasn't that long ago.
Pursued, I don't know what.
Well, they were, at this point, they were already married. I don't know what she meant by that. But.
Okay, and then the next one. Can you do that? I can't go down. It's hard to communicate feelings when you don't have normal conversations because sometimes most men don't like to communicate.
That's not true.
I will say
that isn't true.
That we as women, again, have to give them a space to want to communicate, right?
And we
that they feel comfortable.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, baby.
That they feel comfortable talking to us. Not we're doing all the talking and they like, yes, honey. Yes, honey.
Exactly.
No, communication. They may not like to talk, but they want to communicate. I'll say that, right? So all this blah, 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 no. But communicate. You talk a little bit, then I talk a little bit. I talk a little bit, you talk a little bit. And we take turns and really communicate and hear and listen to each other. And in some cases, if you haven't been doing that a lot, you got to get in the routine. Get in the routine. Start it, try it, do it so you can be more comfortable at it. He can be more comfortable communicating and you can communicate more effectively.
We're all adults, right? And unless you're sitting in church, nobody want to stand up and hear no sermon about what it is or what you feeling. We don't want to hear that. We don't. We communicate differently than a woman communicates, of course, but just make it a balanced conversation. It's not fair to you've been sitting there talking for the past 10, 15 minutes, and I forgot what I got to say, honestly. Too dang long.
Didn't he tell me it was my fault for having a bad memory last week? Was that last week?
Stop bringing up old stuff, see?
Really?
But
so, yes, I get that, and that's on both sides. So if you don't do it already, pass the mic. Okay, you get 5 minutes, I get 5 minutes. And I don't know. I don't really want to, unless you're really making a good point, that I don't know if I want to listen for 5 minutes. Give me a chance to have some interaction. That's what we really want to have.
Okay, she said Kevin could have pursued her. When she went to the shower. You feel like she was saying that she failed to tell him that was probably he could have gone to the shower. Okay. He could have done that, but she also could have just told him when he asked her what was wrong. And it's not. This is
when she came out.
Right. This is not every woman. of course, but a lot of times women can manipulate that situation to where you're not really getting a genuine reaction from us about really what's bothering you. We're more reacting because you're crying and we don't want to see you cry. So rather than that being the case, that I come in there to quote unquote comfort you for that, just tell me what it is so I can get an opportunity to fix it. Just like Kevin said, if she would have told him, he would have corrected it. He would have done everything in his power to correct it. So running off in the corner crying, yeah, he could have gone, but she also could have opened her mouth and said something about it as well. And
I think it makes for an uncomfortable situation too, right? Because now that you're crying, it's like, oh goodness,
yeah.
what really happened? I must have really screwed up. And then there he goes into his whole thought process of thinking, okay, she's gonna leave him for somebody else. I think they won't admit it, but they have those crazy, imaginations as well. But yes, I think she should have communicated it. And if not at that moment, because maybe she was so overwhelmed, especially, I can get so overwhelmed that I'm, I've come to tears. So with that, I really got to get myself calmed down and I can be able to talk or speak clearly as to where all of this is coming from. Maybe she needed that moment. And him following behind her, again, I totally agree. It would have been more about her crying and less about what the real situation was.
Yeah. Just because men communicate different does not mean women have to ignore a woman's need for conversation. I don't disagree with that. But again, you have to understand, he's not your girlfriend, so you do have to communicate differently with each other. And men, we have to understand that the women, they talk. They got that head full of spaghetti. It's in there. It's all over the place. And we're just kind of, there with our waffles and thinking nothing. When we don't want to think anything, we don't. So I think it's really
all into little compartments.
Yeah, I think we just have to be aware of each other more. Take the time to discuss. Don't go days and weeks without having conversation about things. Mm-hmm. It's truly a need to communicate, and it's not just when there's a problem. Just talk about it. Talk about whatever it is. Make an effort daily to talk to one another.
That's it right there. Not a problem, not an issue. We talk. We are connected. We are communicating. I can see when something's off. I pay attention to you, right? Because I'm talking to you every day. So I know when something's a little off that we can address, or if something's really on, you're really excited or happy about something. Oh, I see a little pepper in your stepper. Yes. We want to acknowledge those things. And if we're not connecting and paying attention to each other, then we could miss it.
Yes, D. Absolutely. 5 daily tasks.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's right. 5 daily tasks. You have to
all right, Mr. Nana,
do that. Oh, yeah. We're over. We did not get through communication, which we knew we wouldn't get all the way through. But we're going to pick it up next week and continue to read.
Same time, same
I will say this. Invite someone to watch. If you haven't liked, subscribed, give us some hearts. Do it.
Yes.
Do it. We're trying to grow this thing and get the message out. It's really, really there. We want to make sure that people are hearing it. Say a prayer for the Fredericks family, because Kevin lost his older brother, Jason.
The one he talks about that was going to the wedding.
Right. He lost his brother. They are here in Houston trying to get his body back to, I think he was from Charlotte, North Carolina, somewhere in there. But if you follow him, he's a comedian by trade, so he's still keeping it funny. He was clowning in Houston about the traffic and all this good jazz. If you've ever been to Houston, you know how big Houston is, and I couldn't even argue with the brother in that case.
Don't come.
But don't come for us for our roads though, because they're better than many other states.
Don't do it.
And cities, shall I say? All right. So next week we will be back Thursday, 8 p.m. Turn on your notifications, like, subscribe to the channel, Elevate Marriages, so we can keep pushing this message out for people.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
before we go, I don't know if I said this last week, but if I didn't, just remember, if you have any questions, concerns, we heard from a lot of you last week after the jealousy chapter. I have no doubt that we will be talking about communication throughout this week. But if you have any questions, concerns, video ideas, or you would like us to be your personal marriage mentors,
absolutely,
please reach out to us at Elevate Marriages, at the LEES, the LEES at elevatemarriages.com. See, he was about to clown. You saw him, jerk his head over.
I'm still going to
Anyway, the LEES at elevatemarriages.com, the LEES at elevatemarriages.com. We appreciate the opportunity to be before you and can't wait to do it again next week.
Absolutely.
Or if you don't see us before then, right?
Oh, yeah, we may put something out there, she be clowning, getting email addresses wrong and stuff. Until next time, do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better. I'm James Lee.
I'm Tarsha.